So, sorry. Thank you so much. And so Tatiana, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Dottie, and thank you, dear friends, that we are together now. But I would like to say that I am here now with you, rather like human being who is looking for self-understanding, who is looking for self-identification in this world, which is so interesting, so big, and so, how to say, multiple in their reflection, in their revelations. And yes, I can say I am psychologist. And I also can say that my life and professional experiences show me that anthroposophical psychology exists like a phenomenon. Anthroposophical psychology exists like real power, which helps. And today, I decided not to use any scams, not to use any tablets, any pictures, any drawings to speak with you. But I would like to share some images which we can create together. And for me, would be very interesting if anyone from you can share their questions. Do you have any questions about anthroposophical psychology we can consider during our common hour in Zoom? If anyone has these kinds of questions or remarks, please, we can start from this. If not, I will continue. So share something if one has, if you have. Yeah, please.
Okay. Yes, okay. I have a question, okay? It was my grandson's 12th birthday, and he has a friend, okay? And his friend is referred to as they because this individual has not declared their particular gender. Now, in looking at this individual, when I saw the individual yesterday, this person looked girl, okay? The birth gender identity is male. So that is a question that didn't come up 50 years ago, but it's a question that comes up now. And the question is assisting in this individual to navigate in the way that's best for them.
Okay, thank you. Something else? Other questions or?
I like to ask, do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear.
Oh, thank you. I like to ask, what can be done from anthroposophical way for bipolar?
For what?
Bipolar.
Bipolar, manic depressive. What was
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Something else? I think we can start, and if someone will find another questions or concerns, we can share. And the item, the subject of our conversation is anthroposophical psychology, and its scientific and spiritual basis. So, looking at psychology like a science, we can hear and see in this word, this is science about psyche, science about soul. But if anyone or one looks into modern psychology, he cannot find any conversation about soul, about psyche. And looking into psychological history, we can see that birthday of this science was in 1879. This is the time, the year, when Wundt has established first psychological laboratory of consciousness research. So we rather can say, looking at modern psychology, that this is science of consciousness. And this is very important for nowadays, this human consciousness and the way how this human consciousness can be influenced from outside. In 2009, I have found very interesting statistic in Russian Institution of Globalization. And the director of this institution said that in 2009, there was only 20% of investment, of financial investment into scientific investigation, which has been given to investigation of nature and cosmos. And 80% of investigation were spent to investigation in the realm of human consciousness and the way of this consciousness influence. And so we can see that consciousness question is very important. But looking again into psychology, into modern psychology, we can find that there is a lot of information, a lot of researches which are connected with subconsciousness and superconsciousness. So one can ask, what is psychology like a science? It's a kind of combination between philosophy of psychology and results of psychophysiological researches, diagnostic methods, and also method of psychological correction and psychological therapy. And as professional psychologist, I can see that very often it's really difficult to find integrity between those parts of psychology. Why? I think because modern psychology doesn't speak about soul itself, because soul must be, human soul must be in the center of psychological researches, in the center of psychological considerations. But how does soul could be considered? The first method which Wundt, like establisher of psychology like a science, has used in his laboratory was method of introspection. So this inner self-experience of soul. I worked as psychologist also in prison system. I worked with prisoners, with soldiers, with people who work in their system, with servants, or I do not know, is it a good work with workers, and also with prisoners. And I, how is it? I worked with a lot of psychological tests. And this is really, for some extent, crazy situation when one person is fulfilling these test lists, and other persons try to make a conclusion. What is the essence of the person who was tested? And because of this, we have everywhere in the world, people have a lot of problems with psychological testing, with psychotherapy. What kind of problem? I can see a lot of misunderstanding between test structure and inner structure of soul. And just anthroposophy gives us soul structure. Human soul is self-standard being, which is incarnated in human body and which has real connection with individual human spirit. And if we are looking for self-understanding, or if we are looking for any understanding of human soul phenomena, we have to apply to such a threefold structure: body, soul, and spirit. And then looking into the soul structure has been done by anthroposophy. We can find a kind of real understanding what is or who is human soul. As we saw, psychology started around 150 years ago. It was a time when natural science was in its crisis. It was a time of first crisis of classical natural science. Because natural science, which considered human soul like continuation of body, like a part of body structure, of body phenomenon, it was really considered like a part of human body. But in the time of this first crisis of natural science, scientists had to confirm, had to recognize that human soul need to be considered independently. And psychology, like science, has started from this understanding that human soul is something which does not belong to nature. And from that time, there is a kind of picture, it's my own picture. When I am looking into modern psychology, that human soul is walking around with a light in a hand and try to understand, to recognize itself, who I am, like a human soul. And psychology, our modern psychology, not spiritual one, not anthroposophical one, could be considered like not an integrity, but different parts, different streamings of soul consideration. From one point of view, we can see some realm of modern psychologists which are considering soul like determined by body, fully determined by body processes. Other part of modern psychology is considering soul like being determined by social processes, but social structure. And there are also a kind of religious psychology, Orthodox psychology, Protestant psychology, which of course are considering soul like something which is coming, which is, how to say, human soul, which has some spiritual features. And if we try to look at soul, at the human soul, from spiritual scientific point of view, we can see another picture. What is anthroposophy? This is a way of development of path of cognition, which try to unite individuals spiritually of human, so spirit in human being, with spirit in cosmos, with spirit in spiritual world. And in this case, we see also human eye structure. Anthroposophy gives us also structure of human eye. In the only lecture Rudolf Steiner gave for professional psychologists in 1911 in Bologna, he said that human eye cannot be found in the body. It cannot be found on the earth. And in human soul, incarnated in a human body, one can recognize only reflection of human eye. Because of this, we can understand that our human eye, our high eye, has its reflection in soul. And this reflection can be recognized, can be perceived by soul only because of human body, which is like a mirror, like a screen, which allows soul to recognize its spirit. And just please try to build a kind of real image. How is it going? Individual human spirit, which is connected with human soul, is reflecting in soul, because soul is embodied. I apologize for some English words which are coming from my soul when I try to think in the language. So maybe sometime it's a bit crazy, but I hope you can understand my English. So we see this phenomena when spirit reflects in soul, and soul is incarnated in body. So this phenomena of human soul between mortal body and immortal spirit, this is the core image of anthroposophical psychology from one point of view. How can human soul identify itself? Just like soul, which is connected with spirit. When we try to understand nature, we must be out of nature. We can understand nature when we are based in our soul experience of nature. Human soul is experiencing outer world through our senses, which are in body, but all information we get from those senses, we have in our soul, like a soul images. So we have to stay a bit outside from nature to recognize it. And if soul need to be recognized, we also cannot be established, cannot be based in soul itself. In this case, we have this a kind like dancing with a fire, walking around soul problems without any understanding why it is so. So one can be based, can be grounded in spiritual self-understanding to get any real cognition what is soul or who is human soul. So the first step which is necessary for understanding of soul is being in spirit. And just because of his spiritual researches, spiritual observation, Rudolf Steiner gave us structure of soul and structure of spirit. So first of all, human being now is spiritualized soul. And healthy experience, healthy self-identification for human being is when one can consider and experience himself or herself like soul, which is connected with spirit and with body. And this gender aspect, which is so sharp and sometimes so painful, like all soul aspects now, also could be considered from this point of view. Who is soul itself? Soul, human soul, is incarnated into human body. And we have three bodies, three body sheets, three soul levels, so soul realm, and three kinds of our spirituality, also three I. And we know this gender differentiation we have in our two bodies. Our physical body has evident gender, differentiation. We have male or female physical body. And if physical body is female, etheric body is male one, and our soul can be incarnated in one incarnation, female body, in another incarnation is male body. So first of all, we need to consider human being like a spirit. Soul, spiritual being, which is in this incarnation, in male or female body. And I think that one of the reasons which we have such a sharp gender question is that quite a lot of modern people have, sorry, it's not so easy to say these words, but nevertheless, it could be considered from this point of view in my mind. So quite a lot of modern people have problem with self-identification like spiritual being. We are human beings, and we are human beings when we are in body, which has gender differentiation. And we are human beings when we are not embodied, when we are in spiritual world. And working with biography, working with other kind of anthroposophically orientated psychology and psychotherapy, one as psychologist have to deal with both parts of, or with all three parts of human being: body, soul, and spirit. And only this human integrity can lead us to another understanding of human being. First of all, or generally, we are soul spiritual being incarnated into body. And if we can look at our modern problem, soul problem, soul question, psychological and physiological diseases, from this point of view, we can find that this kind of self-identification, like individual spirit, can lead modern people, just can lead people to such an important possibility of understanding what is healing power. Our body is mortal one. So if I, like psychologist, try to help my patient through bodily orientated method, I understand that it's not enough to work through body. I have to find another way to help soul, because this experience that body is mortal is real for soul, especially if person is not so young. If person is young, for example, I have 17 years old patient. Body is growing. Body power is so active that soul sometimes is confusing by this body activity. I mean, this self-understanding could be darkened by this soul activity. For example, now I have quite a lot of young patients who cannot experience their bodies in a good way. They have to cut their body to experience I am here. So it's not enough to influence body or try to recognize only body or primarily body. Human being must, I would like to stress, must understand and identify itself or himself, rather himself, with spirit also. What is spirit? This is divine power which is immortal, which is rooted in eternity. So there is no any diseases. There is real healing power in spiritual realm. And after mystery of Golgotha, after Christ's resurrection, any human being has been born on the earth has real connection with spiritual power of true human I. After that moment, any human being can find connection with healing power through his own I. And looking from psychological point of view at most of modern psychological problem, we can see that fear of death is one of biggest real reasons of a lot of psychological problem. But if human being can experience connection with his or her I, high I, which is reflected in soul like everyday I, the center of our everyday consciousness, human being can touch to the source of healing power, which can come through any human soul. So this understanding who I am spirit. I've been like a being before this birthday, and I will continue my way after crossing the threshold of spiritual world, which we call death. And this connection, which is in every moment and which can be recognized like an idea, which can be experienced through biography consideration, which can be experienced like reality also in psychological work with a psychologist. This connection can become real basis of healthy life. So in any in any case of diseases or psychological problem, one can find, how to say, basis for healthy self-understanding in right I conception. When I studied philosophy in my first high school, I heard about this I conception. It was my first experience of this scientific term, I conception. My idea of who I am, my self-identification, which everyone has. And if this is really reduced conception, limited by image of body, this could be the source of psychological problem, because body is changing. Body can be ill very easy, and body is mortal one. So no real possibility to be based in body. But if one can recognize that there is something which has no connection with body, but it is real experience for soul, it can give this recognition, can give real basis for soul to be established in itself. I have something which is not limited by my body, which is growing independently on body condition, of course, almost. If there is a real, how to say, body problem, of course, soul life can have, if in the case of real body problem, of deep or big disease, physiological disease, soul also will have consciousness problem. But mostly our consciousness could be based not only on the body experience. And this experience being based in soul, in connection with spirit, is really very healthy experience for people in different, or for people of different ages. And even in the beginning of work, psychological work with patient, when psychologist considers patient like a human being, which is potentially free spirit, this is the first step, first stage of healing process. I experience my patient like equal person. And this is only, how to say, artificial consideration. I am psychologist or I am therapist and he or she is patient. We are equal spirits and I am in the moment of therapy more or less proper mirror for his or her individuality. And this is the first stage of psychological therapy. I decided not to use any drawing or pictures or computer files to make an image of this, because it would be mortal one. It would be dead image on a paper, on a screen. But I really would like to share with you this alive image of soul, which is embodied not in fixed way. Human soul is coming into the body in the morning, in the moment of awakening, through fingers and toes. And it is coming from body periphery, and it is moving all moment, all day, and then it is leaving body through head. And during night, when most of us are not in clear consciousness, our body, our soul spiritual being is in a moving connection with the body. So any moment we have just one moment picture of this connection between soul and body. And this image of frequent or endless movement is also a kind of attempt to get a real image of spiritualized and embodied soul. Spirit is in movement in any case and in any moment. And this is a kind of creating movement. Soul is in movement also in every moment, but this is a kind of reacting movement. And this reaction could be healthy or not healthy. But in any case, in this reaction, we need a kind of spiritual basis. I am human being, and my reaction depends on me because I am grounded in my spiritualized I conception. Johann Wolfgang Goethe said that human soul will have such a place in spiritual world, which is this soul will prescribe to itself. So our state of our spiritualization or our spiritual self-identification depends on us. And anthroposophy gives a real image of this. And because of this image, human being can easily find proper place in spiritual world. I mean, this place like a kind of proper spiritual self-identification. And any kind of spiritual problem or any kind of disease could be considered like like a kind of mistake in this self-identification, like non-harmonious relation between body, soul, and spirit. And in the case of connection or relation between soul and spirit, we can say that any psychological problem could be considered like a mystification or illusionary image of self-identification of human being. I think it's enough for our conversation. At least it's enough for me. I could speak about this even in English more and more, but I would like to hear your questions or your concerns, please, your remarks. It would be interesting for you because working with English-speaking people, I can see, and with German-speaking people, of course, in English, I communicate in English. I have an experience that language and body differentiation, which has connection with ethnic and national differentiations, colors our soul experience in different tones. And the same things could be considered by soul in different tone. In the case of German psychologist, American one, British. So please, it would be very interesting for me to hear your questions and concerns. But please remember that it would be much easier for me to understand you when you will speak quite slowly. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Tatiana. This picture of eye conception and in relationship to body, soul, and spirit is very beautiful around this question that Mr. Halford asked about gender identity. So thank you for that. It feels like a flowering imagination. So I really appreciate that a lot. So we open the floor, dear friends, if anyone has any questions or thoughts on this or something else that they might like to ask.
I'll ask a question. May I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, Tatiana, if you're a psychologist, and I'm not, but I'm just, aware of a lot of psychologists and their approach, how do you help a patient who has no understanding of anthroposophy and kind of resists the idea when you're counseling them? Because it's much easier to open up the discussion and say, look, it's your eye, work on finding out who you are. Do you have to rely on them to get that understanding for curing them? Or can you kind of just use it in your therapy, knowing what they know? But I mean, to me, it involves a lot of participation from the patient or the recipient. And I'm wondering how you get around that, because most people resist anthroposophy. It's very hard and it involves work and they don't want to work.
Okay, at my website and at this professional card, there is a name, Anthroposophical Psychology. But I never speak about anthroposophy with my patient if they do not ask about this. Because spiritual experience is real experience for anyone. And I work with people speaking on their language. And how we can speak about spirit without this word spirit. If this is a religion person, I can use terms of his or her religion. And this is a way to deal with spirit, to find hope in faith. Sometimes it works. Like one part of therapy, like one part of therapy. If this is a person who doesn't speak about any kind of religion or spirituality or something like this, we work with his self-identification. Firstly, what do you want? What is your problem? And the simplest approach to this is coming from coming to dividing between feeling, willing, and thinking. Person has any kind of problem, and those problems includes some emotional experience, some conceptions and ideas, some wishes. And when I try to purify image of problem, in any case, I start to deal with I. And this purifying is the way to everyday I. But in any case, person has ideals. An ideal is the connection with high I. So I can work with ideals without any, how to say, spiritual tones, because this is my respect to personal freedom. I have no task to explain people what is anthroposophy when they come to me only like patient. But working with my students on seminars, sometimes, you know, it's a quite usual situation when during the seminar, when I teach people with anthroposophical psychology or anthroposophical artistic therapy, some of my students start to be my patient. And in this case, I can openly speak about I, about spirit, about healing power of anthroposophy, about our true I, and so on. So it depends on case. And I think that it's very important to have real deep respect to any person picture of the world. And if I do not feel resistance to their world understanding, in many cases, they start to be quite tolerant to my world point of view. So this experience of being equal, we are spirits in any case. Human being is spirit. This is the basis of our humanity, of humility. So spirit, looking to the spirit. Now, this is quite respectable situation, so no resistance. Or almost no resistance. If resistance comes, it means I failed, like psychologist. I did something non-correct. Please, maybe some more questions.
Are you able to give us an example of a patient finding their everyday I and how that would lead to their higher I?
Okay. One of my patients, he was that time 42, and during last 4 years, he got pain and cramped in his hand when he fell asleep or fall asleep. So usually it was a situation when he falls asleep and in 2 hours he had to wake up because of pain and cramps in his hands and in his chest. And no pills, work. And I started to work with him, and he is Hebrew. Also, he's quite tough, materialistic person who said that all those words or talks about spirit is a kind of fairy tale, and he's very adult one. And also, he was brother and like, how is it, brother-in-law of one of my patients, of my student. And so he knew that I am anthroposophical psychologist. And he came to me because of his relative, and he didn't trust and believe, but he decided, okay, I will do. Maybe it helps. And we started to work with his way, with the facts of his biography. When did he do something from his own will, or it was a reaction of how to get money, how to do this or that because of family, how is it, traditions, and so on, or because of social traditions. And he easily recognized that his problem with body experience started in 2 years when he decided that he got enough money and now he can start to enjoy his life. So he started to do nothing. He had enough money and he did nothing. And then in 2 years, he got this kind of body problems. And it was his conclusion when he said, if I do nothing, there is no reason to live and to have body. And this is the real experience of connection with high I. Now his problem with body is much small. He still has something, but now he started to study music therapy. So in my understanding, it was a real connection with his high I, without any discussion about anthroposophy. When he wanted to get a discussion, to have a discussion, I said, no, it's not a question of my ideals. Should we speak about your life and your health? So it's like a kind of example. Because this being finally orientated is one of basic human features, even in materialistic thinking. But because matter is darkness and light, interwave darkness and light, which are penetrated by love. So there is also spiritual phenomena. I think one more question would be nice.
It's Catherine here. Hello, I'm
Hello.
ringing. I'm speaking from Devon in England, and I have anthroposophy in my own thinking, am trying to understand, but I work as a psychodynamic counselor, psychotherapist, and I have for a long time. And what I've noticed is how when people have been in the system you're describing, and including some of my clients that have come as clinical psychologists, it is very inhuman. And what I've discovered, and I feel very awed by this experience, is that when people are met from the human, from myself, when I can be myself from my heart and talk truth and speak truth, and that opens up another space in the room. It's like a reality, another reality appears, and people can think and be and start to be themselves. But the reason I mentioned about clinical psychologists, this isn't against you or anybody, you know, it's just the system is so deadening, and people are often experience a formulaic experience instead of a human being. And I know this is, you know, simplistic stuff in a way, but I'm still amazed that the system creates this. And certainly the people I've worked with that have come, you know, being clinical psychologists, they change, they take into the organization. This isn't just me, this is it's almost that people are having to work out to find therapists outside, or a special therapist like you, or because otherwise they're just being more deadened in a way. Does this make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think this phenomena takes place because we are very social beings, and in our true eye, humanity is oneness. And it's very important for human being to be growing up, growing up in between people, to get first stages of human behavior. And it's very important for everyday I to experience connection with high I when another human being applies to your ideals, to your high I, to evident truth. Because I think we have a lot of problem on individual and social level because of this, how to say, habitant to live in non-truth. You said, when I say truth from my heart, so when I have a kind of heart thinking and I do this openly, this is real invitation to high I of another person, to be involved in connection, in relations. And especially in the case of dependence, or sorry, how is it? Addiction. In the case of addiction, when individuality, connection between soul and individuality is blocked on different level, it's very important if relatives or co-workers, colleagues and friends apply, or how to say, yes, I think apply to high I, to reality of this person, to deal with him or her like with human beings, not normal but healthy one. It's not a question of being normal, it's a question of being human. And it works, it really helps.
Dear Tatiana, I wonder, friend, thank you for that. Helena had a question earlier about
May I
bipolar.
just ask one question? And that is, I know a young lady who thinks that she is, with her physical body, she is always too thick. And that made her even so too thick. That makes her so that she cannot even work. And she sits in her apartment, sure it is in Germany, and they get supported from the government. But what really could be done that she gets out of this?
I think it's very important to experience any person like human being and not to be sorry about any situation of patient, but to experience the equalness between us. We are equal in any case, but in the moment this person has a kind of problem, but I is never sick.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So try to deal with this person at least partly on outer plane, like with a healthy one, and in inner plane, inwardly, try to experience this person inwardly like normal one, healthy one, human being, individual spirit, which has a kind of problem just only in this moment. And because of this good possibility to have an assistance, to be supported, I think some of people, they didn't have normal and necessary resistance from life, because I is growing, I is strengthening, because of attempts on a necessity to overcome problems, to overwhelm something. This is good way to strengthen I. Why do we need some obstacles? Just to get some power from those obstacles. So looking at people, even if people with mental disorders, like on people with some peculiarities in incarnation, we give them good help and good assistance to experience our equalness, not like an image, but like a reality. And it really helps.
Thank you so much, Tatiana. It was a great help and joy meeting you, even if it is over Zoom, but thank you.
Thank you. It's really nice to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tatiana. Thank you, Helena, for speaking for all of us. That this was a very beautiful experience, and to know that someone standing for human freedom with the young people and in sensitivity is really inspiring. So thank you again, Tatiana, for being with us today. Thank you, friends everywhere, for joining with us to listen together. It feels so important that we're all have something different to offer and to hear what our needs are being met through this eye. So yeah, thank you. Many blessings to everyone. Tatiana, again, thank you again. And if anyone would like to make a contribution, we have a link there in the chat somewhere if you find it. And we'll leave the room open for a conversation if anybody would like to have that for the next 10 minutes. But we say thank you so much. Many blessings on your day. Until we meet again, Tatiana. Till we meet again. Yes.
Yes, I hope. So, dear friends, thank you for being together with me and for sharing my personal experience, and I wish you all the best. And maybe we meet one day.
Yes.
All the best.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Blessings.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, dear friends.
Bye-bye.